Okay, I'm going to talk about ventilation booths and rooms and good working practice. I'm going to cover booths and rooms. What are they, what they're for, how do they work, how are people exposed, what checks and maintenance should be done, and what does the law say. First of all, rooms and booths. Rooms look like this. They are maybe a room like this, maybe this, even this size, with a couple of fans in the walls and the entry of replacement air, the air that you suck into the room, maybe through filters in the walls, or it may be just sort of random through gaps in the fabric. They're very crude devices. Booths are far more efficient and effective, and you work in them every day, so I won't bore you with the details, but they are, this is a typical sort of downdraft spray bake type booth. Air comes in through the ceiling, out through the floor. What are they for? They stop the spread of fine paint mist. They stop the spread of vapor from baking. They reduce the exposure of the sprayers and others, and they prevent the exposures of others inside and outside the workplace. How do they work? They the fans create a negative pressure, and that prevents the spread of mist and vapor into the workplace. It's confined within the spray booth or room. The spray mist is diluted and displaced, and that reduces the exposure of the people inside the booth or room. The exhaust air is filtered and or discharged safely, and that prevents or minimises the exposure of others nearby. How do they work? Second point here, I'm going to talk about how air moves within a spray booth and room, and what's often imagined to occur as opposed to what actually happens in practice, and why this matters. This is a diagram from a booth manufacturer's manual, and you'll see the air comes in. Here's the fans. It comes in through a plenum in the top of the booth. It wafts down over where the guy's working and out through the floor. And one of the problems with local exhaust ventilation diagrams, if you've seen any of them, they always have lovely smooth arrows and the air flows beautifully in one direction. It's a magical world. Unfortunately, it's not a real world. I've reproduced this diagram here. So air comes in through the ceiling, out through the floor, and it goes through the volume of the booth like that. Why does it matter that this is wrong? I mean, within reason, who cares how the air moves within your booth? It matters because of what goes on the sprayer's mind's eye. If he believes, first of all, he doesn't see the fine paint mist that he's generating, which fills the booth the moment he starts working. And secondly, if he believes that the air moves within the booth like this, he is very likely to believe he's almost instantly protected. The moment he stops spraying, it's gone. Unfortunately, that's not the way air moves in a spray bake type booth. This is the way it moves. Yes, there's a central core of air flowing from the ceiling through the floor grills. But there's also these large recirculating wakes which slowly move up the wall and down again, and up the wall and down again. And there's another one against the light fillet. And these two interact, as we'll show you later. You can eliminate one of those recirculating wakes by having a fully extracted floor, but you can't eliminate the one against the light fillet. So why does this airflow pattern matter? You start spraying. You see the spray fan, you see the larger particles of paint mist wafting across the bonnet and down through the floor. What you don't see is the fine paint mist, which rapidly fills this recirculating wake up the wall and down again, and spreads throughout the booth. So you stop spraying, it's gone as far as you're concerned. You crouch down, flip up your visor, just check on the paint coverage. Is it safe to take a look? No. Because what you're doing is you're crouching down in this recirculating volume of air full of fine paint mist that you can't see. Is it safe to take a look now? You wait 10 seconds, 20 seconds? Well, no, because although it's diluted, it's still there, it's still present. Is it safe to take a look now? No, it's diluted, it slowly is diluted, it does eventually go away. A key question that you must know, the sprayers and anybody who has to enter a booth, is how long does it take the booth to clear of fine paint spray? This is a smoke test showing recirculation of air in a downdraft spray bake booth. Now, we're injecting a load of smoke into the booth, and this is a fully extracted floor, so you can see the smoke. There's clean air coming in through the filters in the ceiling and out through the floor. You can see it. The extraction working, it's coming down through the floor. But notice also that there's a a volume of smoke which is not going downwards, which is now escaped into this dead zone against the light fillet, and it's slowly tracking along this dead space, and as it does so, it's starting to rotate. It very slowly starts to rotate, and you can see it slowly moving round and round. It's run along here, and it's now showering down over where you'd be standing with your visor flipped up looking at the paint job that you've just done to check it's okay. It literally rains down over you. So this is to show that this effect is very much real. This is Matt Caldwell from the HSL's laboratory. He's injecting smoke into the air jet created by an HVLP spray gun. The velocity of air, you can see that smoke showed the throw of that air jet from the spray gun. The velocity of air there at the start of it was well over 50 meters a second. The downdraft velocity in any spray bait booth is probably at maximum 0.5 meters a second. Velocity of this jet initially is over 100 times the speed of any air movement in a booth, which is why we say when you start spraying, you literally blast. You fill the booth or room full of fine paint mist. This guy is going to spray the back of this Mini. He's then going to stop and just sit back on his haunches. You can see the fine paint mist I was talking about earlier. He's now filling this recirculating wake, which is running up the wall and down again, and up the wall and down again. He's going to stop in a minute and just sit there. Okay. And I want you to look at his breathing zone. Keep an eye on the paint mist in his breathing zone. You'll see that it slowly is diluted, but it takes a hell of a long time to clear. And this is quite a good spray bait type booth. It is diluted, but it takes time. So you're spraying and you fill the whole booth full of fine paint mist, including the recirculating wake. 20 seconds later, after you've finished spraying, it's still there. 40 seconds later, it's diluted, but it's still there. This is an even fancier demonstration. This is where we've measured the exposure of this guy spraying the side of a car from second to second, and the levels of exposure are shown here in this box. I'm going to drag him forward in time. If only you could spray a car at that rate. I'll do it again. Okay, we'll stop there. So he's going to spray the wheel arch and then just sit back on his haunches. Look at the concentration, 5 times the UK limit, 10 times the UK limit. Why is his exposure rising? Why is it higher after he's finished spraying? Because he's sitting back in that recirculating wake, which is running up the wall and down again, and up the wall and down again. And his exposure peaks at over 500 micrograms, 25 times the UK limit. Now he doesn't see that fine mist, and neither do you, but the instrument we've used here picks it up. You'll also see that, if I start it again, as the clean air comes in, it slowly dilutes this recirculating wake, and eventually it will decay away. The concentration of isocyanate in air will decay away to nothing, but it takes time. So the key question is, what's the clearance time of your spray booth? You must know that. It's essential. You need to use smoke to estimate it, and you need to put the time on the booth. And what we say is, at this event, is you need to beg, borrow or steal one of these devices, a smoke generator. This one here is the one that we use. Maybe it's not. Can I have the smoke generator, please? This is the smoke generator that HSE uses and I use. Our inspectors use. It costs about £600. I'm not suggesting you buy one of those. I'm suggesting that you go onto the internet and you put in the search term on Google, fog machine or fog generator, and it'll throw up devices like this. Now HSL Laboratory is going to be doing some testing, and will produce a witch guide, if you like, to smoke generators. These are devices designed for theatrical use and for use in discos and so on. So I would suggest that you buy one of these, you fill your booth full of smoke, you time how long it takes to clear, so you know the clearance time of your booth, and then you stick the resulting times on the booth, the oven door, and you can see this company's done that. So this booth here is 1 minute 15 seconds, and this is 2 minutes 45 seconds. And also you then have the device for those important parties and discos. Okay, airflow in spray rooms. This is a spray room. There's a fan in the far wall, and there's 2 filters in the doors through which air is drawn by the fan. And again, we believe, a lot of people imagine this is how air moves in a spray room. So there is a fan in the wall, and the air comes in through the filters in the doors, and it wafts beautifully across the space, driving away the fine paint mist. What actually happens is this. Yes, this fan creates a negative pressure in this room, and this induces air through the filters in the door, and these filters do generate, if you like, an air jet. But the air jet runs out of puff about halfway across the room, and in the process of moving through the room air, it generates these very slow-moving vortices here and here, and the air movement in this area of the room is virtually random. So what happens when you start spraying? This is what happens when you start spraying. You start spraying the car, you fill the room full of fine mist. Within seconds, it's full of fine mist. And there's no directional air movement detectable at all. You won't see anything happen. It takes at least 10 minutes for such rooms to clear, and it may be over 20 minutes. The clearance time for spray rooms is very long. This is the embarrassing bit for Julie. Sorry about this, Julie. We speeded up this film. Julie's using the smoke generator I showed you to fill a spray room full of smoke, and you can see it fills the room full of smoke, and not a lot happens after that. It's rather like watching paint dry, watching a spray room clear. It takes bloody ages. So I won't bore you with that, but just wanted to embarrass Julie. What's the clearance time of your spray room? Exactly the same answer. You need to buy a fog generator. Fill your spray room full of smoke. That will tell you 2 things, well, 2 things actually, and the same applies to the booth. The clearance time of the booth, whether it's leaking, and you need to know both of those things, and it's available for you to check regularly on the condition of your spray room. You need to put the clearance time on the spray room door. Sources of smoke and fog machines, there are examples here. We're not saying you have to buy these ones, there may be others, but some of them are better than others, and as I said, we're going to be putting on our website and in Bodyshop magazine a sort of which guide to which smoke machines to go for. At the moment, to be honest with you, the Maplin, which is now, it's half its price at the moment, is probably the best one we've come across. What happens to the fine paint mist from spray rooms? In the past, HSE inspectors have come across people using spray rooms. You can see a fan in the wall there. There's a cowl over the fan. There's no filtration, and it's discharged at low level. And we've allowed that to continue. I think partly because we didn't realise quite how dangerous it was. Now we do realise how dangerous it was. HSE inspectors are not going to be walking past such spray rooms in the future. We're going to require that the exhaust is filtered and or discharged at height. What checks and maintenance should be done, and what does the law say? Now, before I go on and talk about that, I want to show you 2 models that have been developed and designed and built by the Health and Safety Laboratory. So I'd ask my colleagues here to start the process. What we have here is a model of a spray bake down draft booth with pit extraction. So please do. The filtered air comes in through the ceiling and out through the floor, and we're using smoke to simulate the fine mist I showed you earlier. And we'll let it cook for a bit and settle down. And what we have here is a spray room. Same idea. That's fine. Well and truly full. Okay. Here's our spray room. Now the spray room is on. My HSL colleagues have just turned the fan on, and it's built, it's dimensionally and airflow wise exactly as as was shown in the photographs earlier on. So you've got filters in the doors here and here, and a fan at the far end, and also there was a gap around the door jamb too. Now with any spray room, as I showed you earlier on, when you first turn it on, not a lot happens. There's almost no directional air movement, no clearance. It just sits there cooking. Right, so we'll leave it to cook, and we'll come over to our spray booth. Now, colleague here will turn it on, and what you'll see is the clean air coming in. You get plug flow from the ceiling. Here comes our clean air, and the car will appear. And you'll see that it clears in the center of the booth, but you'll also see there's a lot of air turbulence against the walls, and the recirculating air against the walls is what makes for a long clearance time of a spray booth. You'll also see it clears quite quickly compared with the spray room, and these models show that when we talk about exposure in spray rooms, the exposures in spray rooms are in terms of thousands of micrograms per cubic meter of air, whereas the exposures in spray booths are in terms of hundreds. You're exposed in both of them, but the exposures in those devices are very high compared with here. Okay, now you've almost cleared there. Can we turn this one off now, please? We'll leave the spray room running as I do the rest of the talk, because it takes forever for these things to clear. Now I think we've got a label here. The clearance time, thanks very much. The clearance time of the spray booth is 3 minutes and 45 seconds. 15 seconds, sorry. And the clearance time of the spray room is 13 minutes and 45 seconds, much, much longer. You need to know the clearance time of your spray rooms and booths, and you need to put it on the booths, and you need some mechanism for telling people when the clearance time has started, so people don't wander in during the clearance time. Right. What checks and maintenance should be done, and what does the law say? First of all, the main thing that goes wrong with booths is that they get out of balance, so that they become pressurized. So when the guy's spraying in here, this person's also exposed. Why does this happen? Two main reasons. The extract filters in the floor and maybe further on in the system get blocked, and or you get an imbalance of air input and air output, and the whole thing becomes pressurized. Also, you should realize that the negative pressure within the booth will fall during the bake cycle because air is recirculated and it's heated up. So you can get a leaky booth during baking. It's not the end of the world because there isn't actually a lot of isocyanate in that air, but it's bad practice. There's a whole range of things you need to do to booths to check, and you know this better than I do, but you need to change the input filters here in the ceiling in this case, and the extract filters more frequently because they get full of paint mist. You need to check the negative pressure within the spray during spraying and baking. Often modern booths have overpressure shutdowns, automatic shutdown devices. Now they can fail themselves and they need to be checked themselves. We came across a company in Newport where both the overpressure shutdown systems have failed. The company, we're relying upon them completely to tell them there's something wrong with the booths. They've probably been leaking for months, and we measured exposures to isocyanate throughout the workplace, and the most highly exposed person was the woman on reception. And what had happened was these things had failed months beforehand, but they hadn't realized. So they need checking too. There's a whole list of other things to check on, and you need to keep written records. At an absolute minimum, a booth or spray room, particularly a booth, should have some sort of negative pressure gauge, a pressure gauge. The standard one, the common one, is the Magnahelic. You can get an individual Magnahelic that costs about 60 quid. And really, if an inspector comes across a booth without some form of pressure gauge manometer, the company will be asked to get one, either by letter or by an improvement notice. You can get much fancier controls. It's just a control system for one particular company. Spray rooms are much cruder devices, but they still need checking and maintaining. So you need to check and replace the filters, check there's negative pressure. Some sort of device like this, some sort of telltale. The negative pressures in spray rooms are so low, they're very difficult to detect, but there are ways of doing it, and this is one way of doing it. The fans will need cleaning regularly, door seals, etc. You need to check for leakage with the smoke generator that you bought, and you need to keep written records. Right, what does the law say? Initially we didn't include this in these talks, but we have now because people asked us to. Regulation 9 of the COSH regulations, Control of Substances Hazardous to Health Regulations, as amended, Reg 9 has always had this title, Maintenance, Examination and Testing of Control Measures, since 1989 when it came into force. The first part of Reg 9 says that all control measures, and booths are control measures, and so are respirators too, should be kept in efficient working order, in good repair and in a clean condition. This wording for control measures goes back to the 19th century. This is absolutely standard. It's been in HSEs, not HSEs, it's been in UK legislation for well over 100 years, so it's not new. This is new. Regulation 9.1b, you should keep systems of work and supervision, they should be reviewed and revised as necessary. We talked about clearance time. You need to know how to use a clearance time, how to get out of a booth during the clearance time and get into a booth during the clearance time. We'll talk about that a little later on. But you need, control measures consist of hardware and the way people work. So it's hardware and software. And 9.1b deals with the software end of things. Also, within every year, basically, you should get your booths and rooms thoroughly examined and tested. Not a lot of people do this. They get their booths maintained by a maintenance company, but they often don't go the extra mile, and the legislation requires you every year to have your booths thoroughly examined and tested. The people that do your current maintenance and testing can almost certainly cover this, but you need a certificate, so when the inspector calls, he or she you can actually show the certificate of test as per Reg 9.2. Similar logic applies to respiratory protective equipment. It should be thoroughly examined and tested, and so should the air supply. And Emily Wilkes from 3M will talk about that later on. And also, every employer shall keep a suitable record. Again, that's been in legislation going back donkey's years. If you don't keep suitable records, how do you know what's been done? And more to the point, how can you show an inspector that your control measures have been maintained? There's further guidance in HSG 54 and other. These cost essential sheets are going to be in your takeaway pack. Right, moving on to good working practice in motor vehicle repair body shops. Good working practice for spraying. Never spray 2-pack isocyanate paints in the open workshop. The mist will spread like fog, like smoke, which you can't see or taste or smell, throughout the workshop, exposing others. Always spray 2-pack isocyanate paint in a ventilated booth or spray room and know how to leave it safely. Find out or work out the clearance time of your booth or room. Don't remove your air-fed breathing apparatus until the air has cleared, or know how to leave safely. In terms of other potential sources of exposure, use an enclosed machine or equivalent to clean your spray gun. Don't come up with do-it-yourself methods. Allow the baking air to be purged after the bake cycle. So you want it to discharge to atmosphere as it does during spraying, just to clear the booth of any residual vapours. As I said, it doesn't